What you're about to witness is a rare moment in congressional oversight, one where the 5-minute rule became a surgical instrument. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas chose to forego the traditional question-and-answer format entirely, opting instead for a structured indictment of FBI Director Kash Patel. To understand why this moment matters, it helps to know the backdrop. Patel was confirmed as FBI Director in February 2025, becoming the first director in the agency's history with no prior service within the Bureau itself. As you watch, ask yourself, what does it mean for a democracy when the standard of qualification for its top law enforcement position becomes a matter of genuine debate?
Jasmine Crockett completely dismantled Kash Patel today in a House Judiciary Committee hearing that left the room in stunned silence. With only a 5-minute window, Crockett bypassed the standard Q&A format and launched a blistering surgical strike, systematically incinerating Patel's record as FBI director. Instead of asking questions, she delivered a relentless indictment, laying out a devastating timeline of failures that left Patel visibly rattled and unable to mount a defense. Let's watch.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay.
What Crockett has done here is strategically noteworthy. Rather than asking Patel questions he could deflect, she submitted news articles as formal congressional record, a procedural move known as unanimous consent. This transforms her personal assertions into officially documented evidence within the hearing record. The articles she cited about Republican lawmakers receiving death threats serve a specific rhetorical purpose: to demonstrate that domestic political violence is not a partisan concern, but a bipartisan reality. The underlying question she is posing to Patel, and to the room, is this: if the FBI's own data shows that right-wing extremism constitutes the largest share of domestic terror threats, why does the Bureau's leadership appear reluctant to acknowledge that publicly? Is the FBI being guided by evidence, or by political optics? That's a question worth sitting with, regardless of where you fall politically.
So here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner, to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there. Even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing, except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions, clickbait auditions for the Academy Award for my Democratic colleagues. We'll see how they fare as they're on MSNBC later on today. Do you care, before I...
There is a gravity to the FBI that transcends any administration. It is built on the unyielding service of career professionals who take an oath to the Constitution, not a person. Yet, Jasmine Crockett exposed the great contrast between that oath and our current reality. On one side, we see a purge of veterans with unmatched institutional knowledge. On the other, a leadership she described as the least qualified in history, led by an individual who never wore the badge before commanding it. When an agency values a show for the boss over expertise, it ceases to be law enforcement and becomes a political operation. We must peel back the fog of bureaucracy and call things by their true names. Redirecting resources is often a mask for the weaponization of the state. It was telling that the director remained paralyzed, leaving Jim Jordan to mount a proxy defense. But no political shielding can obscure the fact that when resources are diverted from domestic extremism to play act as immigration agents, the FBI's core mission is being dismantled. I want to ask you, do you feel safer today than you did 10 years ago? Because when justice is filtered through a partisan lens, and victory laps are taken for captures that relied on the conscience of parents rather than the competence of the Bureau, statistics become a hollow shell. They cannot drown out the silent scream of a democracy where a lawmaker's wife must sleep with a firearm because anonymous threats are ignored by a leadership more focused on optics than protection. This is the human cost. We are not just discussing headlines. We are discussing the legacy left for our children and grandchildren. Will they inherit a country where integrity is a relic? When white supremacy is allowed to fester, while leadership performs for a political patron, the safety of every family is compromised. As we close this dispatch, we are left with a chilling question. Does the Constitution govern the man, or does the man govern the Constitution? Power untethered from character becomes a predator. We saw a director left speechless today, and that silence was the most honest testimony we heard.
What this hearing ultimately surfaces is a tension that predates any single administration. The question of whether the FBI can remain an independent law enforcement institution or whether it becomes an instrument of political will. Crockett's decision to deliver a statement rather than a Q&A was not accidental. It was a deliberate choice to control the narrative and create a clear public record. The Republican chairman's rebuttal focused on Patel's pre-FBI resume, while critics argue that resume lacks the institutional experience the Bureau demands. Both sides are making arguments about credibility, competence, and accountability, and those are exactly the questions a functioning democracy should be asking of its top law enforcement agency. Whether you agree with Crockett's tone or Patel's record, the deeper issue remains: who watches the watchman? That question belongs to all of us. If you found this breakdown valuable, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one, and subscribe so you never miss our analysis of the stories shaping American governance. The more informed we are, the stronger our institutions can be.
Heard. The silence of an agency that has lost its way. If this conversation matters to you and your family, please subscribe and share this video. We don't ask you to follow us just for the sake of ratings or popularity. We ask you to join this mission because the truth is, the only armor we have left. Stand with us, because if we do not protect the integrity of our institutions today, there will be no institutions left to protect us tomorrow. Leave a comment below. Let's keep this vital conversation going.